Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, wherever you might be. Welcome to another episode of the Casual Takes podcast. I'm Greg Coleman, and first off, I just want to say, what a game, what a game, what a game, what a game, what a comeback, and what a finish to the game too. I have a lot of respect for the Rams, mad respect to the Rams, as they are an elite team in this league, and I mentioned that last week when I said that the Rams are a standard in the NFC, and they showed me that more specifically in the first half, as the Eagles look lifeless. First quarter, Lane Johnson gets hurt. Insert Matt Pryor, who just looked absolutely abysmal. He looked terrible, and he was getting beat by Jared Verse on numerous plays, and he just looked lost on the field. Very happy that we inserted Fred Johnson in instead, and it paid dividends to what it looked like in the second half. But when Matt Pryor was in the game, the running game looked lost. Passing game looked even worse. You had multiple plays where there was no spacing in the routes or within the route tree, and receivers didn't really know where they're going, what their assignment was, et cetera, et cetera. And really, it was just unwatchable, genuinely speaking. Like, -1 passing yards in the first half. In the first half of a professional football game, at that. Please be serious. Please be serious. That is embarrassing. That is inexcusable. I was extremely pissed off in the first half, honestly speaking. I had to take a step outside, get a fresh breath of air, because I mean, you obviously saw me posting on my story also. It was just bad, and the Rams are picking apart the Eagles from the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, but even the special teams too just looked pretty poor. On the defensive side, we gave up 19 points. On special teams, we had about three different instances where we had poor field position to start off, which were kind of the reason why we had multiple three and outs also. But we just looked undisciplined as a whole, which is part of the reason why we were committing multiple penalties in the fashion that we did. But fast forward to the second half. I don't know what was said in the locker room. I don't know who was calling the plays. I have a feeling Jalen was probably like, there's no reason why I have or we generated -1 passing yards on the offensive side. There's no reason why we're only calling four of the same plays. And so, whatever was said in the locker room, whatever adjustments were made, it clearly lit a fire under the team. As, but that's not to say that we didn't come out lackluster. Also, as after halftime, we were down 19-7. All right, cool, whatever. We The score showed a lot differently, and from this point on, we gave up another touchdown as we started the half with a turnover. Score to be 26-7. By this point, I'm just looking for the team to not even be embarrassed at home, as they were already booed at the half. I'm just looking for the Eagles to have some type of pride and just not walk out as shameful as they did in the first half. But long and behold, the offense comes alive. We started passing the ball more as we generated up tempo style of offense, be it more creative in the open field, opening up the playbook. I mean, these are kind of things that we had to do as we were playing down up to this point, but it generated success. As first drive, Dallas Carter catches a touchdown pass, making it 26-14. Defense makes another stop. Offense goes back out, responds with an A.J. Brown touchdown. Once again, from moving the ball down the field. Going into the fourth quarter, the Rams were once again stopped on the defensive side. And from this point, I feel like the Eagles had life. We executed a block kick all the momentum is on our side. And really, we kind of controlled our own destiny up to this point. But once again, the Eagles drive down the field. We eat up a lot of clock in the process, which I think is an underrated aspect of this game winning drive, as we gave the Rams a lot of time, don't get me wrong, as we gave them 144 to be specific. But I really like how much clock we ate up in the process of taking the lead in this drive. As Devontae Smith got a touchdown to take the lead, but we failed to convert the two. And the reason why I said we gave them a lot of time is that us not converting that two only gave us a 1 point lead. And so, as I expected, with the Rams having a lot of time, they drove down the field and they had a very good chance at winning the game with a field goal. And so they drove down into field goal range. And at this point, I just assumed that all hope is lost. I said that I was very happy from the fight that the team had showed. Very happy that we showed some fight in the second half and we didn't get embarrassed in the fashion that we did in the first half. And I'm just ready to move on to next week. I was wrong though. I was wrong. Once again, the Eagles execute a block kick. No thanks to Jordan Davis. He comes up clutch and it ends up being a walk-off touchdown. And it was just a great win. I was very hype. It was really a season defining moment, honestly speaking. And my biggest takeaway from not only that finish, but from the game as a whole, is that I mentioned this last week, and people still aren't ready to admit it. But the Eagles are elite. And before you non truthers out there telling me that, the Eagles should be happy that they won the way that they did, or that we were lucky to even beat the Rams, or if the Rams were to play us again, they were to come out on top, or even the sense that the Eagles have a Super Bowl hangover, which I think is crazy to say. It's week 4, and similar to week 1, week 2, and week 3, this team has some rust and they're still working out those kinks. Granted, they do look better every single week, and so that's really my biggest takeaway. But it is week 4 of the season, and I'm not trying to make an overreaction. Or maybe I am. Maybe I am. I think that the Eagles are capable of going back to the Super Bowl from what this game showed me. And really, it's time to talk about how the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. And really, it starts out with number 1, Jalen Hurts. When you force, quote unquote, force Jalen Hurts to pass the ball, good things happen, whether people want to admit it or not. 226 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns, I think really speaks volumes to how Jalen is really never shy from the big moments. And those 226 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, they all came in the second half, which people fail to realize. You might talk about, oh, why didn't he throw for 300? Why didn't he throw for 400? He did all of that in the second half. And yeah, I do have him as my MVP prediction still. And I'm not going to change that. I'm going to stand on business. Will he win it? Time will have to tell. It is a big numbers thing and it is a big stats thing. And one thing I do know about Jalen and really this team as a whole is that they're not going to win games off of the strength of stats. Really, they played a game. They played a game to win. It's not really too impressive casuals out there with these gaudy looking stats. I mean, just look at the Giants when going against the Cowboys. Russell Wilson had over 300 yards, and that looks like to be elite and whatever you see it as. But the Giants still lost that game. This past Monday, Detroit against Baltimore, Jared Goff only had 200 passing yards. But if you watch the game, Jared Goff controlled the offense, and really the offense controlled that game through the majority of really the entire game, I should say. And they did have a big game on the rushing side of things, but you box score watchers are really killing me. Y'all need to watch the games and see how much of an impact these guys are having on the field and how well they're generating wins. As going back to last year, Jalen Hurts is 19-0 as a starting quarterback for the Eagles. And like I said, box score watchers, I need to chill. But moving on to the offensive side of the ball, when talking about Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown said it best. Let your killers do their thing. Yes, this offense needs a lot of work in order to compete, in order to go back to the Super Bowl like I expect them to. But what I expect them to, my expectation for them is that this offense is still elite. Whether Petula was calling the plays or not in the second half, you saw the positive results when you utilize the talent, the so much talent that we have on the offensive side to their maximum potential. Shout out to Fred Johnson also for stepping in and holding his own against Jared Verse. 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen often where Lane Johnson will get hurt, and then you see how little protection that offensive line has. And so I'm very happy that he came in, looked disciplined, was able to hold his own, and was able to keep us in the game also, and not really have that right side of the field as a blind side. Also, what we aren't talking about either, but guess what? Guess what? Saquon hasn't gotten it fully going yet. And that's scary to even talk about, that he is yet to have his breakout game this year. And it really is scary to talk about. Drew Brees said that our offense is boring. Oh, they're so predictable. Touch plus this, touch plus that. Blah, blah, blah. Pipe down. I got a lot of respect for you as you're a Hall of Fame quarterback. You've done great things for the New Orleans Saints organization too. But please, please pipe down. You sound like a lot of these box score watchers and these casuals out here. And so, my biggest takeaway from this offense and my expectation for the offense too is that the best is yet to come. And so, sit back, watch the offense do what they need to do, watch them adjust, and y'all are going to be singing a different tune towards the later stretch of the season. Just watch. Just watch. But speaking of best to come, I do have to talk about the defensive side of the ball also. And y'all already know that this defense is formidable. Although we lost Nolan Smith for some time, I do like what I'm seeing from the defensive line. Most notably, Jordan Davis, who he had a great game against Los Angeles this past week, but he's also having a great start to the year too, and I expect him to continue with that. Jalen Carter isn't even really the best version of himself, in my opinion. He has looked a little bit lost on the field, and he has looked tired in some senses, and so I'm just waiting for him to snap into that mode and also just get his fitness levels up, which is also scary to talk about when you have arguably one of the best defensive players in the league, and he isn't even at 100% yet. So, the biggest thing with this Eagles defense is, and why I look at them as elite, is that they know how to make timely plays on defense. And this defense is already loaded as well with talent. And really, they have a lot of time to fine tune and sharpen their iron. And so just watch out for them. But moving on to the culture of this Eagles defense. or this Eagles team as a whole, I should say. The locker room is unmatched in my opinion. Say 5 or so years ago, this Eagles team, we go down 26-7. I don't think this team comes back from that. And so wins like this are really defining moments in your season. Being able to overcome adversity, trust your teammates, lead by example, and kind of have a fire lit under you as well is a big reason why this Eagles team has dynasty potential. And this team is very, very young also. And so I really like what I'm seeing from the young guys and being able to lead by example. And something that I like to say quite often, and you're probably going to hear me say it a lot more throughout these episodes, is that I don't predict, I spoil. And so don't be surprised if the Eagles find their way back into contention once again this season. I'm calling it now. And y'all might call me crazy for it. Whatever. We'll see down the later end of the season. And so moving on to week 4, we have the 3-0 Eagles against the 3-0 Buccaneers. And it's another game in Tampa, and we've lost the past 3 games in Tampa Bay. While we haven't been the most healthy in these games, I'm not going to excuse that, as we have gotten exposed big time against Tampa Bay. Credit to Todd Bowles for figuring out a game plan against Jalen Hurts, as he is one of the underrated coaches in this league, as he is one of the few coaches in this league that has Jalen Hurts' number. And I expect them to have a similar game plan this week around stopping Jalen from really being Jalen. It's also going to be 100 degrees, or it's going to feel like 100 degrees based on the weather report that I saw in Sunday's game. And so fitness is going to be a huge factor as well. And so the Buccaneers, who are also the undefeated, like I mentioned, being 3-0, they're going to look to insert their names into the NFC conversation along with the Eagles. And so my casual take for this game going against the Buccaneers is that I think this is going to be the Eagles' breakout game. Really could be the potential of the best game of the season to date. I know that the Bucs have the Eagles' number, but I think that changes this Sunday. They haven't played this version of the Eagles, and from what I mean from that is I don't think this is our best team to date, but this is our healthiest team to date when going up against the Buccaneers. And so the best ability is availability, and I think that'll show this week against the Buccaneers as Mike Evans is out, and that is a huge part of the Buccaneers offense. And with all due respect to the Buccaneers, they snuck past the Falcons by 3 points, Texans by 1, and the Jets by 2 points, who, if you look at it, the Eagles are all better than those teams. If you were to line it up against all 3 of those teams, we come out on top every single time. And so I they haven't impressed me that much, even though they are 3-0, and they are a good team, and I have a lot of respect for Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield also. But they're just not moving the needle for me, honestly. And so the biggest key to this game is whether or not Petula looked at the film, looking at the mistakes from the first half, looking at the adjustments that we made in the second half, being able to capitalize off of that. I think we will cook if we do all those things correctly. And so, like I said, eyes are on you, Mr. Petullo. How will you respond? The Bucs also rank 6th in rushing defense, and like I said, they haven't really impressed me with who they've played and who they've snuck past. And so I expect this to change, especially if Jalen is game planned around. Like I said, Saquon hasn't gotten it going yet. It could be potential scary hours this upcoming Sunday. And I expect them to change that narrative for what their run defense is, too. All in all, I think this is the game where the Eagles showcase their talent that we've been missing from this offense, wherever it might be on the field. And so here's to a win against the Buccaneers. I expect us to go into week 5 being 4-0. And I expect to, next time y'all see me, to have a reaction to everything from week 4 with a win. But moving on around the league, as I got to talk about what's going on around the league too. The Giants benched Russell Wilson for Jackson Dart. And so my casual take on that is that I don't think it was the best decision for the Giants to start him this early, as they drafted him to develop him. And now they're throwing him into the fire against a really good Chargers defense. And that can be extremely detrimental to his confidence, as we've seen it from past quarterbacks being thrown into the fire against good defenses. And it's really altered the trajectory of how far their career has gone. And so we'll have to see how he performs against LA. And really, the talent is there. And so I think he will show some flashes, but I don't think it was the best idea. Once again, shout out to the Colts, as they do start the season off 3-0. They have a tough matchup against the Rams this week, and so I think this is going to be a big test for them to see whether they can hang with the big dogs in the league, but also if they can contend in the AFC. Shout out to Carson Wentz also for picking up a win. Former Eagle, former Super Bowl champion. I'll always have respect for him, even though the years didn't end that well. But he won a game with his hometown team, and so I have a lot of respect for that. I was also wrong about the Ravens. They might win their division, yes, on paper at least, but that team does not move the needle for me. I love the player that Lamar Jackson is. I think he is one of the best quarterbacks in this league. But that offensive line is suspect. That defense is Swiss cheese. And their coaching doesn't really tell me that they're going to contend in the AFC this year. And they're yet to play the Steelers too. So I can't even say whether or not they're going to win that division this year. So we'll just have to see. But like I said, Ravens don't move me as contenders. Just throwing that out there. Moving on to the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams finally had his breakout game. And I think it was unfair to write him off the way that people have been writing him off in, as you just need to give him some time. He was drafted number 1 overall for a reason. Potential is there. He showed flashes, and I think this game was a big confidence boost for him. And I think I expect him to pick up from where he left off. Moving on to another team in the NFC North, I have to talk about Green Bay Packers and Michael Parsons. This is a very great game this week, as they're going against Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, I should say. And honestly speaking, I cannot wait for Micah to run wild against this Dallas offensive line, more specifically. After we win against the Buccaneers Sunday, icing on the cake for Sunday Night Football is seeing Packers embarrass Jerry Jones and company. It's going to be great. And really, I think this game is going to prove not only to Cowboys fans, but to Jerry Jones and the rest of the team, is that why they should have paid him that money, as I think he deserved it, and he's going to show them why he deserved it. But moving on to the Jaguars in the AFC South. The Jaguars have an impressive defense this year, up to this point. They're giving a lot of people Saxonville vibes, but this time with defensive takeaways. And although their defense does look impressive up to this point, their offense does not look impressive and doesn't really complement their team well at all. And I looked into Shane Waldron the offensive coordinator for the Jaguars, and kind of the reason why he's been trending. And it hasn't been for good reason either, as he was in Seattle with JSN and kind of stunted his growth and his production. And now you kind of see like the receiver that JSN is now since Waldron isn't there. You also go to Chicago as well too, as he was there last year and stunted the growth of Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams, kind of giving the people the impression that Caleb Williams is an immediate bust, which I thought was even crazy to say, like I said. But it looks like he's doing the same thing to BTJ, as he had a career year last year in his rookie year. And I know sophomore slumps exist, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But it looks like he's running that offense into the ground. Looking very Kevin Patula like. Also on that offense, I drafted Travis Hunter into my fantasy team as kind of like my wild card type of pick, and kind of to shock people within my league too. But he hasn't really impressed me on the offensive side of the ball. He has done well on the defensive side, so I give him credit for that. But like I said, it all goes back to Shane Waldron, in my opinion. Moving on to the South, but in the NFC, talking about the Atlanta Falcons. With Raheem Morris at the helm and having the reins to a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, with Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, just to name a few, I thought that this was going to be a big year for the Falcons offense. Sadly, I was wrong. Sadly, I was wrong. They do have a lot of time to kind of pick up, especially with it being week 4, but also just being in a weak division like the NFC South. I don't know if they're going to pick it up necessarily, but they do have the time. And I don't really expect the offense to kind of move me this year, as it's just how it's going to look this season, in my opinion. But that's all I have for today. Next time that y'all see me, like I said, it'll be all reactions from everything week 4. But I'm coming out with a double episode this week, as we also have to talk about the Phillies and my expectations for what they're going to do in the postseason, as it's just been confirmed that they will be playing in the NLDS. Who that may be, we'll have to see. But they'll be playing the NLDS October 4th. So look out for a good amount of content this upcoming week. But that's all I have for today. Make sure to follow, like, and share on all platforms. And I'll see y'all next time. Go Birds.